Thank you for tuning in to my first interview. We're going to be interviewing Mandy Farrar, the Caratunk Girl, who is out in Caratunk, Maine, and pretty soon we'll have her on this interview. But what we're going to do is we're going to ask Mandy a few questions about life in Caratunk, training up there in Caratunk, what she has to deal with in terms of the weather, in terms of the location with streets. Here in Dallas, we can go bike ride wherever we want, and most people can do that as well. But up there where she lives, it's a little bit of an isolated area, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for her, so I want to talk to her about that. She's recently gone grain-free in her diet, as well as sugar-free in her diet, so I want to talk to her about that, as she does all of this to prepare for her second go-round at Ironman Lake Placid in 2013. So without further ado, let's introduce Mandy Caratunk Girl.
Hey, Jason.
Mandy. Hey, Mandy, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So it's been about almost 4 months, I guess, since we last saw each other in person when we were going down the river up there in Maine. And I know back then the weather was perfect, couldn't argue, but we're about a week into December, and how has the weather changed since that day?
Oh my gosh. Saturday, I went for a run and it was -5. And, yeah, it was one of those where I went outside and I came back in and I'm like, more layers. So it's gotten a lot colder for sure.
So let's talk about that in terms of your training. I mean, down here in Dallas, honestly, and I don't want to rub it in, but we just recently had an 80-degree day. And so, I was out there running in shorts and a t-shirt, and it's great. In terms of the weather, for you, what do you face? What's the biggest obstacle? And honestly, from a mental standpoint, how difficult is it for you to get out the door?
I think the biggest obstacle is definitely when it's really cold and then it's dark, it's hard to get your butt out the door. And there's no one out there that I'm meeting generally. I mean, there's no one here who does this stuff. And so that makes it really hard because it's not like I'm going to let someone down by not going out there. I'm going to let myself down, I guess. But, I think that's really hard. But I would say the weather makes it tough. And the isolation, the combination, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just being down here in Dallas, we obviously have a tremendous triathlon community. Up there, you are the entire triathlon community, so it's got to be tough. What do you say to yourself on those days? Because we all have them. I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that. What gets you out the door?
I think honestly, there's days when I don't get out the door, I guess, but most of the days I do. And I think the thing is, I try to convince myself if I go out there for 5 minutes, once I get out there, I'm going to be really happy I'm going to go out there. Or I also think about, I never regret having run, but I always feel like crap for skipping a workout. So I sort of go through those sort of mental games with myself a little bit, and I think of it when it's cold like that, because we don't really have the cold, we'll have snow, and where I live, it's right on this major road with lots of heavy log truck traffic, so it's you got that to deal with too. But I almost rip it off like a Band-Aid, that's stuck on your skin. You just go out there and just sort of do it.
That's a great analogy. I know when Matt and Heather and I were going up there, the one thing we did notice were the logging trucks. Those guys were flying down those roads, and it's not like those roads are very wide, 2-lane highways for the most part. And that got me to thinking. You just talked about running and dealing with the running in the snow, but what about cycling? I know obviously in the winter you're going to be on the trainer, you're going to be doing Sufferfest and different videos, but when the weather clears up, how tough is it to ride outside with those logging trucks coming by so fast?
It can be really scary, actually. It's tough because the thing is, when they go by, there's like this weird wind that happens and you almost get sucked towards the road. You learn how to weight yourself. So, because if you put the weight right, it seems to hold better. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it's hard. And like if you get two of them and you're on a straightaway and they're passing each other, you almost get blown off the road. It's definitely hard. On the weekends, if I have a really long ride, I usually go somewhere else. I try to use here for stuff that's 40 or 50 miles. But if I have something longer, I usually go somewhere else because it just feels safer. And I'm usually by myself. That's the other thing. It's not like I ride with people. So and there's no cell phone service here really. So if I go somewhere else with the cell phone service, if I get into trouble, at least I can call for help, you know. So
Well, I'm gonna have to put a map up of Caratunk on this blog post so that people can see exactly where you're located and they can understand the fact of the matter is that you are way north in Maine, North America, basically, and I recall seeing Canadian flags when we were driving up to
yeah,
your house that day.
yeah.
But that leads me to my next question. In terms of mental toughness, I mean, you have to have it because you're riding by yourself, you're swimming by yourself. You clearly can't put on headphones when you're riding with those logging trucks going by while you're riding your bike or even on a run. So how does that help you when you get into the throes of the Ironman race, when you're at mile 100 of the bike or you're at mile 22 of the run, where it really comes out that right now it's just about a mental battle to get to that finish line? How does where you have to train help you, do you think?
I think it definitely makes you more mentally tough because what happens is you get all these different situations that you have to deal with by yourself, and it's like if you can mentally get yourself through the training up here, it's I think it prepares you just to push through almost anything, I guess, because you can be on a 120-mile ride as far as for training, and at mile 100 you want to be done. Well, you don't have that choice because no one's there, right? So you got to keep going, and I think somehow that helps you in the Ironman because mentally you don't give yourself the choice, because you never had it in training. So,
Right. No, that makes sense. I
you
want to
know.
take a step back now. For people who don't know you and who you are, and they don't know CaratunkGirl.com, give us a brief overview of how you got started, why you got started, and where you hope that this whole Ironman and triathlon world takes you.
I started, let's think about this. Yeah, I did my first marathon about 7 years ago. And then I did like 4 marathons, and then I kind of got bored with just running. And I actually took a couple years off and gained a bunch of weight and randomly signed up for a triathlon. I didn't know how to swim really. And I just went and signed up and did it. And the swim was horrible. I think I was the last one out of the water. It was pathetic. But anyway, and then but there was no one, I really loved it, but there was no one around that I knew that was interested. And I just started writing about my stuff. And my friend said, geesh, you should really get that out to more people. And she helped me get a Twitter account and showed me how to put it onto Facebook. And then all of a sudden, I met you, I met, Matt and Heather, and I met just a ton of people. And all of a sudden, I wasn't alone anymore. Because I had all kinds of other people who were doing the same thing as me. They might not have been next door, but they were there. And I guess for Ironman Lake Placid, what I want is obviously to do better than my last one. I did 15 hours in my last one. I'd like to get as close to 13 as I can. And then after that, I'm not sure. I'm thinking about maybe doing some ultra running stuff. I think I'll stay in triathlon, but, mix in a little bit, some different stuff for a season. I think that's about it.
That makes total sense. I think when you mix it up, you obviously recharge your batteries, and I think that's a big plus to keep people motivated. For those of you who don't know, Mandy raced Ironman Lake Placid in 2011. Go to her site, caratunk.com, and Google duct tape. You'll get a great story out of it as well. Probably my all-time favorite story from an Ironman race. I won't ruin it for anybody who's watching this, so make sure you go to her website and check it out. It's great stuff. Clearly, my blog, Cook, Train, Eat, Race, is about eating healthy and staying in shape and just doing the things to lead a healthy lifestyle. With the obesity rate in America, I mean, it's just important that we focus on what we're putting into our mouths as much as our physical appearance, really. So you've gone, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at least wheat-free, probably, I'm assuming, down the path towards gluten-free and definitely no sugar at this point. Elaborate on that decision to do that and how it's going so far.
I'm basically doing no sugars and no grains. which would be gluten free and wheat free and all that. And the way I got there actually is kind of funny because I've done all this training for a really, really long time, but I'm always gaining weight. And what I found was, I ate what I think a lot of people do, and a lot of stuff that you'll read in any magazine, or maybe not any magazine, but a lot of the triathlon magazines, they talk about carbo loading and all that. So, I'd have oatmeal for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, and I'm a forester, so I'm always in my truck, so I need something mobile for lunch. So, I'd have a sandwich, and then at night I'd often have pasta. And I'm doing all this training. I'm training 20 hours a week, and I'm still gaining weight. And I'm like, what the heck? And of course, I'm doing the sugary gels and all that, and plus I eat a lot of sugar. And anyway, I just randomly listened to this podcast, Vinny Tortorich, .com. But anyways, and I just listened to it, and he talked about and explained a lot better than I can how your insulin reaction, how the insulin in your body and a lot of people's bodies react to sugar and to the carbs in a lot of grains. And I just thought, well, and I listened to one, and I just sort of said, well, I'm not going to eat sugar. But then I kept listening, and I said, I'm going to just try it for a couple weeks. And in 2 weeks, I lost 10 pounds. And I was eating what I wanted for the most part. Not sugar and not grains, but, and I wasn't hungry. And I just started doing some reading and some research about it. And it's working for me. I'm down 20 pounds. And and I want to get, makes me feel really good because I feel like I'm on the right track for my Ironman training too. Because I was getting heavier than I needed to be anyway, especially heavy for racing.